gardening series. So we've talked about cold weather plants that you can plant when it's still a little chilly outside. And we've talked about perennials, which are plants that grow over a bunch of different years. And today we're going to talk about warm weather plants, which are plants that you plant only after the weather gets warm and there's no chance of frost at night. So warm weather plants they're annuals, so they will, when the frost comes in the fall, they will die off, and usually people will start them indoors and then transplant them, which is what we've done here with our vegetables. And usually it's the fruit of the plant that's the edible part. So if you plant like peppers, for example, you eat the pepper fruit. And they take about 2 to 3 months, usually, to get ripe. So, since these are vegetables or plants that we plant only after the weather gets warm, it's important to know, it's a little bit windy here, to know your hardiness zone. So, we talked about this in a couple other gardening programs. Your hardiness zone tells you when the last date in the spring is, when there is a chance of frost or snow at night. And it also tells you when the earliest chance in the fall when you might get frost or snow at night. So here in Loudoun County, we are zone 7, which is this light green right here. So we can pretty much plant a lot of things, and our frost-free date, the date where there's usually absolutely no chance of frost or snow at night, is the first week of May. And we're past that, so we're good. So another thing that you might want to do, you might want to test your soil, especially if you're using your own soil, like digging up your own soil. You can find these at garden stores like Home Depot. They're also available online, and you can also find them at our extension office, which is on Catoctin Circle here in Leesburg. A test will tell you if you need to use a certain type of fertilizer, because it'll tell you what nutrients your soil has a lot of and what it doesn't have a lot of. So, what are some warm weather plants that you can start planting now? Well, peppers, and you'll see that we have peppers here. We have 3 of them. Peppers like to be watered regularly, and they take about 10 weeks after transplanting them to get ripe, and then they'll continue to get ripe up until the first frost. Hot peppers tend to be hotter if you water them less. And all peppers can be green. You can pick them when they're green, but they'll have more flavor if you wait until they're red or orange or yellow. If you've planted hot peppers, you want to wear gloves when you're picking them. And the 3 that we've planted here are all hot. Another one that you might want to think about are tomatoes. And we have some tomatoes here. We have 3 varieties here. Tomatoes like a lot of regular water, and there's 2 different kinds. There's determinate tomatoes, and then there are indeterminate tomatoes. Determinate is just a funny way of saying end. So determinate tomatoes, the tomatoes all come ripe at once. So you might get 500 tomatoes all at once, which is great if you like to make ketchup or tomato sauce. It's really great for that. Indeterminates will continue to ripen throughout the summer. So you might get 5 tomatoes this week, and 5 tomatoes next week, and 5 tomatoes the week after that, which are great if you just like tomatoes in your salad or tomatoes just to eat. They are vines, so they will benefit if you tie them to a stick or put a cage around them so they don't topple over. And depending on the variety, they take about 2 to 3 months to get ripe. And if it has started to turn colors, you can pick it, whether it's fully ripe or not. it will continue to ripen after it's picked if it has started to turn colors. So that's useful to know, like in October when it's starting to get cold at night, you can look at the ones that have already started to turn colors and you can pick them then. So our next vegetable, and we don't have these planted here, we only have peppers and tomatoes here, but these are ones that you can plant at home. Sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes like loose, sandy, well-draining soil, and they really like the sun. So this area right here where we've planted, it gets a lot of sun in the afternoon. So if we could, the other year we planted sweet potatoes here and they really did well. Harvest is about 3 to 4 months after transplanting, and you'll know that it's ready because the vines will turn yellow. Now, sweet potatoes, because they are a vine, they like to spread out. So if you only have a small area, you might want to keep an eye on them just to make sure that they're not crowding out your other plants. And they will be sweeter if you cure them after you dig them up. So curing involves you keep them in a warm, moist place, like put them in a plastic bag and stick it by a window for about 2 weeks, and then afterwards move them to a cool, dry place for 6 more weeks. So after you take them out of the plastic bag, you want to put them in like your basement or a closet or someplace where it doesn't get a lot of sun. And then they'll be much sweeter then. So that's sweet potatoes. Another one that green beans. I know the picture isn't really good because green beans are green. So it's green. Beans love the sun. They're pretty easy to grow because they don't require a lot of fertilizer. There's 2 varieties. There are bush beans, which all come in at once, kind of like determinate tomatoes do. And then there are pole varieties, and those are the ones that are vines, and you might want to tie them to a stick or a cage, and they will ripen over several weeks. If you want to eat the beans green, you want to pick them they start to ripen in about 7 to 8 weeks. If you want to keep them on their plant until they get dry and eat them dry, like for baked beans or bean soup, then you want to wait another couple weeks until they're brown and dry. That's green beans. Another one is corn. So I know corn's a favorite among a lot of you. Corn loves the sun, and corn is a very hungry vegetable. So they like a lot of regular fertilizer, especially nitrogen. Now, you can buy fertilizer at Home Depot, but really the cheapest way to get nitrogen into your soil is if mom or dad or your grown-up likes coffee, the used or expired coffee grounds contain nitrogen. So you can just, after mom or dad finishes their coffee in the morning, you just take the wet paper with the wet coffee grounds and put them in the garden next to the corn. They love that. Corn can get quite tall. There are some varieties of corn that can grow up to 10 feet tall. So that's pretty tall. And you'll know when to pick the corn when the silk, this is the silk part right here, kind of looks like hair, turns dry and brown, which is about 2 to 3 weeks after it starts to appear, and the ears will feel full. So that's corn. And the last one that we're going to talk about specifically are pumpkins. So pumpkins like a lot of sun and a lot of fertilizer, and they need a lot of space to spread out because they are vines, and depending on the variety, they can get very big. So they tend to do well if there are flowers nearby that attract bees, because bees will also pollinate pumpkin flowers as well. And pumpkins require a long growing season. It can take up to 5 months for the pumpkin to actually get ripe. So this is another reason why you might want to know what your growing zone is, because if your fruit takes 5 months to get ripe and you don't start planting it until the end of May, well then we're pushing it into the end of October by the time there's a chance that it might get ripe, and it might be cold in the end of October. So that's another reason why we might want to know when to plant our vegetables. So that's the last one that we're going to talk about specifically, but there are other vegetables that we can plant now. So eggplant you can plant now if you like eggplant, cucumbers if you like pickles, summer squash, which is like zucchini. I know that's yellow, but zucchini is a type of summer squash. Potatoes are really good to plant now, watermelon, and sunflowers. So you can eat the seeds, or if you just want to grow them for the pretty flowers, that's cool too. So all of those are available. You can plant them now. And of course, we are not the only ones that like veggies. Rabbits and deer, and sometimes birds, like veggies just as much as we do, sometimes even more. So it's sometimes helpful to plant things around your veggies that they don't like. So think plants that are prickly or fuzzy or have a strong scent generally aren't as appealing to animals. So marigolds, which have a bit of a scent, and lavender, which has a bit of a scent, and morning glories, which are fuzzy, they're all very good to plant around your garden. And also, we don't want to forget to maintain our veggies after we plant them. So we want to remember to water them regularly, add some fertilizer or some compost, keep an eye out for weeds and bunnies and deer. Once the veggies, the peppers and the tomatoes start to ripen, do feel free to come around and help yourself to any of them. We also, if you saw the cold weather plant program on cold weather vegetables, we have other salad greens around at the other entrance to the library, and you can feel free to come by and help yourself to those as well. Thank you for joining me for our program today, and we want to thank Mr. Josh for helping me record today. Mr. Josh, do you have any questions?
Nope. I learned a lot today.
All right. So we'll see you next time.